The training mat felt wrong under David Cooper's boots. Too soft, too cushioned, like walking on pillows instead of proper flooring. Everything at the Galactic Military Academy felt that way. Weak, delicate, built for bodies that had never known real weight or real danger. David adjusted his stance during the drill, trying not to think about how different this place was from Fort Benning back home. 3 weeks into his assignment at Orbital 7, and he still couldn't shake the feeling that he was training in a kindergarten playground instead of a military facility. The equipment felt like toys in his hands. The gravity made him feel like he could jump over buildings. His alien classmates moved like they were underwater, slow and careful. Instructor Hralvik circled the training group, his reptilian eyes watching each cadet with sharp attention. The Torgathi warrior stood nearly 7 feet tall, his scaled skin gleaming green and bronze under the artificial lights. Back on his homeworld, Hralvik was considered a fierce soldier. His people had a reputation across the galaxy as tough and disciplined. David had read the files. Torgathi warriors trained from childhood in combat arts that had been perfected over thousands of years. But watching Hralvik move, David couldn't help noticing how light he seemed, how his bones looked almost hollow, how his strikes, while technically perfect, lacked the devastating force that even a basic Marine back on Earth could deliver. Formation drill, Pattern 7, Hralvik announced in his clicking, hissing voice. The translator implant in David's ear converted the words smoothly. Defensive posture against multiple opponents, begin. David moved into position with the other 47 cadets. They came from dozens of different worlds. Palaxi with their soft fur and large eyes. Cortani with their forearms and crystalline skin. Maluvians who looked like walking flowers. Dozens of species, all learning to fight together, to defend the Galactic Union against threats that might come from the dark spaces between stars. He tried to follow the pattern. Step left, block high, pivot right, guard center. The movements were precise and calculated, designed by military minds that had studied warfare for millennia. But they felt strange to David's muscles. Too slow, too measured. On Earth, fights were fast and brutal. You moved or you got hurt. Simple as that. Human Cooper. Hralvik's voice cut through the training hall. Your stance is incorrect again. David reset his position. Feet apart, hands up, center of gravity low. The same stance felt different on this station. The reduced gravity meant he had to constantly adjust, constantly compensate for the fact that his body wanted to move faster than the drill required. Your weight distribution is wrong, Hralvik said, moving closer. You fight like you are on a high-gravity world. You must adapt. Yes, sir, David replied. Sorry, sir. He tried again. Step left, block high, pivot right. But his foot placement was off by inches. His body was still calibrated for Earth's pull, for ground that pushed back with real force. Hralvik's patience snapped. The instructor moved with sudden speed, his hand shooting out in a strike that caught David across the face. The blow wasn't hard by human standards, barely more than a slap, but it was meant to correct, to discipline, to remind a sloppy student to focus. In Torgathi military culture, this was normal, expected, a teaching moment delivered with just enough force to emphasize a point. Hralvik had done this 1,000 times with 1,000 students. It was how warriors learned. But David wasn't a Torgathi student. His body reacted before his brain could process what happened. Years of training back on Earth, countless hours in dojos and gyms and combat courses, all compressed into pure reflex. The moment Hralvik's hand touched his face, David's combat instincts took over completely. His right hand snapped up and caught Hralvik's wrist in mid-strike. The grip was iron-hard, fingers wrapping around bones that felt far too delicate. David's weight shifted automatically, his hips pivoting as he twisted the captured arm and drove his shoulder into Hralvik's center mass. The Torgathi instructor's feet left the ground as David executed a perfect hip throw, a technique he'd practiced 10,000 times. Hralvik hit the training mat with a sound like breaking branches. The impact that would have merely winded a human shattered the instructor's forearm in 3 places. His skull plate cracked against the supposedly safe padded surface. David followed the throw all the way down, his left hand already positioned at Hralvik's throat in a strike that could crush a windpipe. Then David's conscious mind caught up with his reflexes. He froze, his hand hovering an inch from the instructor's neck. Horror flooded through him as he realized what he'd just done. Hralvik lay beneath him, his eyes wide with shock and pain, green blood seeping from the crack in his skull plate. "Oh God," David whispered. He pulled his hands back like they'd been burned. "Oh God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. The training hall was absolutely silent. 47 alien cadets stared at David with expressions ranging from shock to pure terror. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then one of the Palaxi cadets, a small furry creature named Tyrell, spoke in a trembling voice. "Predator reflex. He has predator reflex." The word spread through the crowd like fire. Predator. 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 Security drones dropped from the ceiling, their weapons trained on David. Medical personnel rushed in with a floating stretcher. Hralvik groaned in pain as they carefully loaded him onto it, his broken arm hanging at an unnatural angle. David raised his hands slowly, showing he was no threat. But his classmates were backing away from him, pressing themselves against the walls, their faces showing the universal expression of prey animals confronted with a hunter. "I didn't mean to," David said again, but his voice sounded hollow even to himself. "He hit me. I just reacted. It was reflex." Two security officers approached him carefully, keeping their distance like he was a dangerous animal. They were both Cortani, large and strong by galactic standards, but David could see the fear in their crystalline eyes. They just watched him break a Torgathi warrior in less than a second. "David Cooper," one of them said, his voice steady but cautious. "You are confined to quarters pending investigation. Please come with us." "Do not resist," David nodded. He felt numb. Around him, the other cadets whispered and stared. Some were filming with their personal devices. This would be all over the galactic networks within the hour. As the security officers led him out of the training hall, David looked back once. Medical personnel were still working on Hralvik, their instruments scanning his injuries. The instructor's green blood stained the mat where David had thrown him. 3 weeks at the academy. 3 weeks trying to fit in, trying to be a good student, trying to represent Earth well, all destroyed in less than 3 seconds because someone had hit him, and his body had done what millions of years of evolution had programmed it to do: defend itself. The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss, cutting off the whispers and stares. David walked between his escorts down the curved corridor, his mind replaying those terrible seconds over and over. He'd been trained to fight since he was 7 years old. Every human was. It was just what you did on Earth. You learned to protect yourself because the world was dangerous and people could hurt you. But here, in this place built for species that had evolved on gentle worlds under kind suns, his training made him a monster. The holding cell was small and bare. The security officers sealed him inside without a word. Through the transparent wall, David could see other personnel hurrying past, their eyes flicking toward him with fear and curiosity. He sat on the narrow bench and put his head in his hands. Somewhere in the medical wing, Hralvik was fighting for his life. And somewhere in the files and databases of the Galactic Union, people were probably already pulling up Earth's classification: Deathworld, Class 12, Apex Predators. David had read those files too, back during his orientation. He'd thought they were exaggerating, making Earth sound more dangerous than it really was. Now he understood. They weren't exaggerating at all. The detention cell had no windows, no clock, nothing to mark the passage of time. David sat on the metal bench and counted his breaths. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 4, out through the mouth for 4. A meditation technique. His first martial arts teacher had shown him when he was 9 years old. Back then, he'd used it to calm down after schoolyard fights. Now he used it to stop thinking about the sound of Hralvik's bones breaking. The door opened with a pneumatic hiss. 2 figures entered. The first was Commandant Drelix, the Academy's highest authority. He was a Maluvian, tall and thin, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. The second was a woman David didn't recognize, but the elaborate symbols on her uniform marked her as someone important. Someone from the Galactic Union itself. "David Cooper," Drelix said, his voice carrying harmonics that the translator rendered as formal and cold. "This is Counselor Morwen of the Galactic Union Observer Corps. She is here to investigate the incident." Counselor Morwen was humanoid at least. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But her skin was pale blue and her eyes were completely black, no whites at all. She studied David like a scientist examining a specimen. Tell me what happened, she said. No greeting, no preamble. Just straight to the point. David took a breath. Instructor Hralvik was correcting my stance during a drill. He struck me across the face. I reacted defensively. I didn't think about it. My body just moved. He struck you, Morwen repeated slowly, like she was testing the words. And your response was to break his arm in 3 places and fracture his skull? I didn't mean to hurt him that badly. I just wanted to stop the attack. Attack? Drelix's colors shifted to something that might have been confusion. Instructor Hralvik was not attacking you. He was providing corrective discipline. This is standard practice in Torgathi military tradition and accepted protocol in 47 member species training methods. David felt cold. He hit me. Where I come from, if someone hits you, that's an attack. You defend yourself. Morwen and Drelix exchanged a look that David couldn't read. Your people strike each other regularly? Morwen asked. Not regularly, but it happens. Fights break out. People get angry. Sometimes you have to defend yourself. And you are trained to respond with lethal force? I'm trained to respond with appropriate force, I held back. I could have. David stopped, realizing how that sounded. You could have what? Morwen leaned forward. Killed him? David said nothing. The silence stretched out. Morwen pulled up a holographic display that floated in the air between them. David recognized the Earth logo, the blue and green sphere that represented his homeworld. But surrounding it were words and symbols in galactic standard script. His translator implant picked them up automatically. Deathworld classification, Class 12. Gravity, 3.2 times galactic standard. Atmospheric composition, oxygen 21%, dangerously high for prolonged exposure by most species. Native life forms, extreme competition, high predator-to-prey ratio. Dominant species, Homo sapiens, apex persistence predators with pack-hunting intelligence and tool-using capability. Morwen expanded the file. More text appeared, and David felt his stomach drop as he read it. Warning: human reflexes are significantly faster than galactic baseline. Physical strength exceeds most species' military personnel even among human civilians. Pain tolerance classified as abnormally high. Recommend caution in all physical interactions. You've been classified as a predator species, Morwen said. Did you know that? I knew Earth was listed as a death world. I didn't know what that meant exactly. It means your planet kills things, Drelix said, his colors shifting to something dark. Your gravity crushes, your oxygen burns, your weather devastates, and your native life evolved to survive all of that by becoming more dangerous than the environment itself. Morwen pulled up another screen. This is the medical report on Instructor Hralvik. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, severe cranial trauma. He is currently in intensive care. The doctors say he will survive, but his recovery will take months. David felt sick. I'm sorry. I truly am. I never wanted to hurt him. But you did hurt him, Morwen said. And according to the biomechanical analysis, you used approximately 15% of your full strength. Is this correct? David thought about it. The throw had been reflexive, automatic. He hadn't put his full power into it. If he'd really committed to the technique like he would in a real fight back on Earth. Yes, he said quietly. That sounds about right. Drelix's colors went completely black. You could have killed everyone in that training hall. No, I wouldn't. I would never. Your body reacted before your mind could stop it, Morwen interrupted. You said so yourself. What happens the next time someone startles you, or bumps into you in a corridor, or makes a sudden movement near you? Do we simply accept that humans might kill without intending to? That's not fair. I'm in control. Are you? Morwen closed the holographic displays. David Cooper, you seem like a reasonable person. But reasonable people don't break bones in 3 places with 15% effort. Reasonable people don't carry the capability for instant lethal violence in every movement. The door opened again. A human woman entered, wearing the formal diplomatic uniform of Earth's embassy. She was in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that assessed the situation immediately. "I'm Dr. Rebecca Walsh, Human Liaison Officer," she said. "This interview is over. My client will not answer any more questions without proper legal representation." "Dr. Walsh," Drelix began, "we are simply trying to understand." "You struck a human being without warning," Walsh said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Are you people completely insane?" The blunt question seemed to shock both aliens into silence. Walsh turned to David. "Are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" "No, ma'am. I'm fine." "Of course you are. Because humans can take a hit and keep functioning." She turned back to Morwen and Drelix. "Let me explain something to you. On Earth, striking someone without warning triggers an automatic defensive response. It's built into our nervous system. We don't choose to react. We just do." "That is precisely the problem," Morwen said. "No, the problem is that you people don't understand the first thing about human biology or culture. Tell me, Counselor Morwen, does your species have fight-or-flight response?" "Of course. All intelligent species do. Humans have fight-or-fight-harder response. We don't run. It's not in our nature. When threatened, we eliminate the threat. That's how we survived on Earth long enough to develop civilization. That makes you dangerous. That makes us survivors. There's a difference." Walsh pulled up her own holographic display. "Let me show you some things about human military training. This is a basic combat course at a human military academy." The image showed human soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. They struck each other, grappled, threw each other to the ground. It looked brutal and violent. Drelix's colors flickered rapidly. "This is training? They are hurting each other. They're learning. And yes, sometimes people get hurt in training. But we don't strike students as punishment. We don't use physical discipline because we know exactly what will happen. The student will respond defensively and someone will get injured." "How do you maintain discipline without physical correction?" Morwen asked, genuinely curious. "We use words. We use rank structure. We use duty and honor and accountability. We don't need to hit people to make them follow orders." Walsh closed the display and faced the two aliens directly. "Here's what happened. Your instructor assaulted my citizen. David defended himself using minimal necessary force. If he'd wanted to kill Hralvik, the instructor would be dead. The fact that Hralvik is alive and recovering proves that David showed remarkable restraint. Minimal necessary force." Drelix's voice rose. "The instructor nearly died. Because your species has hollow bones and fragile skulls. That's not David's fault. That's basic biology. You put a human in a room with species from low-gravity worlds and then act surprised when someone gets hurt?" Morwen stood up. "Dr. Walsh, I understand you are here to defend your citizen. But this incident has sparked a political crisis. There are already calls in the Galactic Council to suspend Earth's military integration program. Some members want to revoke Earth's membership entirely." Walsh's expression hardened. "Let them try. Earth didn't ask to join your union. You invited us. You said you wanted humanity's perspective, our skills, our knowledge. But the moment one of ours defends himself, you want to throw us out?" "We want safety," Drelix said. "We want to know that our students won't be attacked by their classmates." "Then don't let your instructors attack their students," Walsh shot back. The argument continued, but David barely heard it. He was thinking about the medical report, about Hralvik lying in intensive care, about the fact that his reflexes had nearly killed someone. He'd always known he was strong. On Earth, everyone was strong by galactic standards, but knowing it as an abstract fact was different from seeing the results. Different from understanding that what felt like a basic defensive move to him was devastating to species from gentler worlds. "That's not enough time to prepare a defense. That's what you have. The galaxy is watching, Dr. Walsh. They saw the footage. They saw a human break a decorated military instructor in less than 3 seconds. If we don't address this quickly, there will be panic." David was escorted out by human security this time. They treated him gently, professionally. As they walked through the corridors, he saw other humans, embassy staff, and visitors. They looked at him with expressions he couldn't quite read. Pride, fear, sympathy. One older man, a maintenance worker by his uniform, nodded as David passed. You did what you had to, son. Don't let them tell you different, but had he? David wasn't sure anymore. Back on Earth, defending yourself was natural. Expected, admired even. Here it made him a monster. The galaxy thought humans were dangerous predators. And after today, David couldn't argue with them, because they were right. 3 days passed too quickly. David spent them in a comfortable suite at the Earth Embassy, but comfort didn't stop the nightmares. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Hralvik falling, heard the crack of breaking bones, felt the terrible ease with which he'd hurt someone he'd never meant to harm. Dr. Walsh visited daily, preparing him for the tribunal. She brought files, legal precedents, cultural analyses. She tried to make him understand the bigger picture. This wasn't just about one incident. This was about humanity's place in a galaxy that feared them. Now David stood in a transport shuttle heading to Station Unity, the neutral ground where the tribunal would take place. Through the viewport, he could see the massive station slowly rotating against the backdrop of stars, ships from 100 worlds docked at its arms. This was where the galaxy came together to solve problems, to make decisions that affected billions. The shuttle docked smoothly. David walked down the ramp flanked by Dr. Walsh and 2 human security officers. The docking bay was crowded with beings from dozens of species. Camera drones hovered everywhere. News crews from every major world were here to record the proceedings. A Palaxi reporter pushed forward, her translator making her high-pitched voice understandable. David Cooper, do you have any comment? Do you feel remorse for nearly killing Instructor Hralvik? David stopped. Walsh put a hand on his arm, but he gently moved it aside. Yes, he said simply. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I'm sorry it happened. But you did hurt him, another reporter called out. Are humans too dangerous to be part of the Galactic Union? I hope not, David said. I hope we can learn to live together. Walsh guided him away before more questions could come. They moved through corridors filled with people who stared and whispered. David kept his eyes forward, trying to ignore the fear he saw in so many faces. The tribunal chamber was enormous. 3 judges sat at a raised platform. On the left was Judge Keller, a Calarian with a body like a giant insect, compound eyes reflecting rainbow colors. In the center was Judge Hartman, a human woman with stern features and gray hair pulled back tight. On the right was Judge Skalvik, a Torgathi like Hralvik, his scales marked with scars from a lifetime of military service. The gallery was packed. Hundreds of beings filled the seats. David spotted other humans in the crowd, embassy staff and some military personnel. They gave him encouraging nods, but there were far more aliens, and most of them watched him with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. This tribunal will now begin, Judge Hartman announced. Her voice echoed through the chamber. We are here to determine the facts of the incident at Galactic Military Academy Orbital 7, and to decide what measures, if any, should be taken regarding human participation in Union military programs. The prosecution went first. A lawyer from the Galactic Justice Corps presented the case. He showed footage of the incident, slowed down so everyone could see each moment. David's hand catching Hralvik's wrist. The throw, the impact, the terrible stillness afterward. The evidence is clear, the prosecutor said. David Cooper responded to minor corrective discipline with overwhelming force. He could have killed Instructor Hralvik and 47 other students before security could respond. This demonstrates that humans are too dangerous for integration into mixed-species military units. Then it was the defense's turn. Dr. Walsh stood up, projecting calm confidence. Let me show you something, she said. She pulled up a video. It showed a human child, maybe 6 years old, at a playground. Another child pushed him. The first child pushed back. A brief scuffle followed before a teacher separated them. This is normal human behavior, Walsh explained. Children learn boundaries through minor conflicts. They push, they respond, they learn where the lines are. Now watch this. She showed another video. A human teenager in a martial arts class. The instructor demonstrated a technique, striking at the student. The student blocked, countered, moved with fluid precision. This is also normal. Humans train to defend themselves from childhood. We practice thousands of times until our responses become automatic. We do this because our world is dangerous, because threats are real, because hesitation means injury or death. She changed the image again. Now it showed predators from various worlds. A hunting cat from a garden planet moving with lazy confidence, a pack hunter from a forest world, coordinating with its group, and finally, footage from Earth. A human running, maintaining steady pace for miles, never stopping, never tiring. Humans are persistence predators, Walsh said. We don't have claws or fangs. We're not the strongest or the fastest, but we keep going, we adapt, we learn, and yes, we fight when threatened. That's not a flaw, that's survival. Judge Skalvik leaned forward. But this survival instinct makes humans dangerous to other species. It can, Walsh admitted. But it doesn't have to. Let me call my first witness. A holographic screen appeared. On it was Hrelvik himself, still in medical care but conscious and alert. His arm was in a regeneration cast and a bandage covered part of his skull, but his eyes were clear. Instructor Hrelvik, Walsh began. You were the one injured in this incident. Tell the tribunal what happened from your perspective. Hrelvik's clicking voice came through the translator. I was teaching a combat drill. Cadet Cooper's stance was incorrect. I struck him to correct his attention, as is standard in Torgathi training methods. His response was immediate and violent. Did you consider that striking a human might provoke a defensive response? No, I had not reviewed the human cultural files. I assumed all species would respond similarly to Torgathi teaching methods. That was an error on your part? Hrelvik was quiet for a moment. Yes, it was my error. I should have studied human responses before teaching a human student. Walsh pulled up more files. According to your own statement given to medical personnel, you said, the human could have killed me but stopped himself. Is this accurate? Yes, when I review the footage, I see the moment where his strike stops. His hand was positioned to crush my throat. He had won, but he chose not to finish the attack. Why do you think he stopped? Because he recognized that I was not truly a threat. Because despite his predator reflexes, he retained his reasoning mind. Walsh let that sink in. Then she called David to testify. David walked to the witness platform, feeling hundreds of eyes on him. Judge Hartman looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. David Cooper, Walsh began, tell the tribunal about your training. When did you first learn to fight? I was 7, David said. My parents enrolled me in a martial arts school. Most kids on Earth learn some form of self-defense. Why? Because bad things can happen. Bullies exist. Criminals exist. You need to be able to protect yourself. And what were you taught about when to use violence? Only in self-defense. Only when there's no other choice. The first rule of fighting is don't fight. Walk away if you can, but if you can't, if someone attacks you, you defend yourself with whatever force is necessary. Walsh pulled up the footage again. When Instructor Hrelvik struck you, what went through your mind? Nothing. I didn't think. I just reacted. My body moved on its own. And when did you realize what you'd done? About 2 seconds later, when I saw him on the ground. When I saw the blood, I was horrified. If you could go back, what would you do differently? David thought carefully. I would study the cultural files better. I would understand that different species have different teaching methods. I would be more aware of my surroundings and keep my reflexes in check. But in that moment when you were struck without warning, your body reacted to protect you, yes? And that's not something you can simply turn off? No, it's trained into me. It's automatic. Judge Keller spoke, his translator rendering his clicking sounds into words. This is the problem. How can we trust beings who react with lethal force automatically? Walsh turned to address all 3 judges. Because they can also choose to stop automatically. David's training didn't just teach him to fight. It taught him to assess threats, to use appropriate force to stop when the threat is neutralized. Watch the footage again. The entire sequence takes 2.8 seconds. David reacts at 0.2 seconds. But at 1.8 seconds, his expression changes. That's when his conscious mind catches up, and he immediately stops and retreats. She pulled up brain scan data. This was taken from similar incidents involving human combat reflexes. You can see the brainstem firing first, triggering the defensive response. But less than 2 seconds later, the prefrontal cortex activates and overrides the reflex. Humans aren't mindless predators. They're predators with conscience. That's a fine distinction, Judge Skalvik said. It's the only distinction that matters, Walsh replied. Every species has survival instincts. Humans just have faster, more aggressive ones. But we also have the ability to control them. The tribunal broke for deliberation. David sat with Walsh and other members of the Earth delegation. Nobody spoke much. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone. Hours passed. David watched the crowd in the gallery. Some human, some aliens, all waiting to see what the galaxy would decide about his people. Finally, the judges returned. "This tribunal has reviewed all evidence and testimony," Judge Hartman announced. "We find that David Cooper acted in instinctive self-defense against unexpected physical contact. However, the severity of the response raises serious concerns about human integration into mixed-species environments." David felt his stomach drop. "Therefore, we rule as follows. David Cooper is not guilty of assault. His actions, while regrettable, were understandable given human biology and cultural background. However, all Galactic Union facilities must implement immediate protocol changes. Physical discipline of any kind is banned in facilities with human personnel. Human students must undergo enhanced restraint training before participating in contact exercises, and all instructors must complete human cultural sensitivity courses before teaching human students." Relief flooded through David. Not guilty. He wasn't going to jail or getting deported, but Judge Hartman wasn't finished. That being said, this tribunal cannot resolve the larger question. The Galactic Union Security Council has been conducting a parallel review of Earth's military integration application. They will announce their decision shortly. She looked directly at David. "You are free to go, Mr. Cooper. But the question of humanity's place in this union remains open." David stood on shaky legs. Dr. Walsh squeezed his shoulder. They'd won the battle, but the war wasn't over. As they left the chamber, David saw Tyrrell, the small Palaxi cadet from his training class. The furry alien approached cautiously. "I watched the whole thing," Tyrrell said quietly. "I was scared of you before. I think I understand better now." "I hope so," David said, "but others don't. They're still afraid." David nodded. He understood. Fear wasn't something you could argue away with facts and testimony. The galaxy was afraid of humanity, and after 3 days of evidence showing exactly how dangerous humans could be, David couldn't really blame them. The Earth Embassy compound felt too quiet. David sat in his assigned quarters, staring at the walls and trying not to think about what came next. The tribunal had cleared him, but that didn't fix anything. It didn't repair Hralvik's broken bones or erase the fear he'd seen in his classmates' eyes. It definitely didn't solve the bigger problem of humans trying to fit into a galaxy that wasn't built for them. A knock at his door broke the silence. Ambassador Chen Wei entered without waiting for an answer. She was a career diplomat, someone who'd spent 30 years navigating the complex politics of the Galactic Union. Her face showed concern, but also calculation. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Fine, I guess. Still processing everything." Chen Wei sat across from him. "David, I need you to understand something. This incident, it's not just about you anymore. Earth's application to join the Galactic Union military has been pending for 5 years. We've been negotiating, compromising, proving ourselves. This was supposed to be the final step. Sending our best and brightest to the Academy, showing that humans can work alongside aliens. And I ruined it. You survived it. There's a difference." She pulled up a holographic display showing news feeds from across the galaxy. "Look at this. Public opinion polls from 62 worlds. 71% think humans are too dangerous for full military integration. The Security Council meets tomorrow to vote on Earth's application. The smart money says they'll reject it." David felt the weight of that. Not just his own failure, but his entire species being judged and found wanting. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Don't be sorry. Be ready, because this isn't over yet." After she left, David tried to sleep but couldn't. His mind kept replaying the incident, searching for the moment where things went wrong. Should he have been more careful? More aware? Should he have somehow known that Hralvik would hit him? Another knock. This time it was someone he didn't expect. Tyrrell, the Palaxi cadet, stood in his doorway looking nervous. "I hope I'm not bothering you," Tyrrell said, her translator making her chittering sounds into soft words. "No, come in." David gestured to a chair. Tyrrell moved carefully like she was still afraid but trying not to show it. "I wanted to ask you something," she began. "That day when you reacted to Instructor Hralvik, I said you had predator reflexes. I've been thinking about that, about what it means, and it means I'm dangerous. Maybe. But also I've been watching videos from Earth learning about humans, and I saw something interesting." She pulled up a video on her personal display. It showed a human house and a human child playing with a large dog. The dog was huge, with teeth and claws, clearly a predator breed. But it was gentle with the child, patient, protective. "This confused me," Tyrrell said. "Your species domesticated predators. You brought them into your homes. You trusted them with your children. Why?" David hadn't expected that question. "Because they're loyal. Because they protect us. Because even though they're dangerous, they choose not to hurt us." "Exactly." Tyrrell's large eyes focused on him. "I watched the video of the incident many times. You moved like the hunting cats from our nightmare stories, fast, efficient, deadly. But you stopped. You had won. Instructor Hralvik was helpless. You could have finished him. But you didn't." "Of course I didn't. He wasn't really a threat. But your reflexes didn't know that. Your body reacted like he was a threat. Yet somehow in less than 2 seconds you chose to stop." "How?" David thought about it. "Training, I guess. You learn to assess situations quickly, figure out what's a real threat and what isn't. So you're a predator who learned to make choices, to override your instincts with your mind." "I suppose so." Tyrrell was quiet for a moment. "My people come from a garden world. No predators larger than insects. No real danger. We evolved in peace. When I first saw you move, saw how fast and strong you are, I was terrified. I thought you were like the monsters from our old stories. But monsters don't stop. Monsters don't feel guilt. Monsters don't apologize." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we're afraid of the wrong thing. We're afraid of your predator nature, but maybe we should be grateful for your conscience." After Tyrrell left, David thought about her words. He pulled up his own files, information about Earth that he'd never really paid attention to before. The classification data that marked his world as a Class 12 Deathworld gravity, 3 times galactic standard. Oxygen levels that would be toxic to most species over time. Weather systems that could wipe out entire cities. Tectonic activity that reshaped continents. And life evolving in that chaos, becoming tougher and more dangerous with each generation. But there was other information too. Data about human behavior that the scientists had documented. Humans ran into burning buildings to save strangers. They jumped into water to rescue drowning people. They protected children that weren't even their own species. They formed bonds with animals that could kill them. Earth was a death world, but humans had learned to do more than just survive there. They'd learned to care for each other, to build communities, to protect the weak and help the helpless. The next day, Ambassador Chen Wei summoned him to her office. When he arrived, he found Dr. Walsh there too, along with several other humans he recognized as military advisors. "The Security Council is meeting now," Chen Wei said. "We're watching the live feed." The holographic display showed the council chamber. Representatives from 50 major worlds sat in a circular arrangement. The human delegate, Admiral Rita Stone, stood at a podium in the center. "The matter before this council is simple," a Cortani representative was saying. "Do we allow a predator species full military integration? The recent incident at Orbital 7 demonstrates the danger." Admiral Stone responded calmly. "The incident demonstrates that humans have defensive reflexes, yes. But it also demonstrates restraint. David Cooper could have killed Instructor Hralvik instantly. He chose not to." "Choice made in 2 seconds is barely choice at all," another delegate argued. 2 seconds is an eternity in combat. A human soldier can make 100 decisions in that time. The question isn't whether humans are dangerous. The question is whether we can be trusted to make the right choices. The debate continued for hours. David watched delegates from different worlds argue about humanity's nature, about the risks and benefits of human integration, about the future of the Union itself. Finally, a vote was called. The results appeared on the screen. 28 votes to approve human military integration, 22 votes against. 6 months passed like water through fingers. David settled into his new role at the Cross-Species Combat Institute, a repurposed cargo station on the edge of neutral space. The facility was small compared to the academy, holding maybe 200 students at most, but what it lacked in size it made up for in purpose. He stood in the training hall, watching a mixed group of students practice a simple blocking drill. Humans, Palaxi, Cortani, even a few Torgathi, all learning to move together to understand each other's capabilities and limitations. Slowly, David called out, "Remember, you're not trying to hurt each other. You're trying to learn each other's rhythms." A human student named Robert accidentally bumped into a Palaxi partner. The small alien flinched instinctively, and David saw the flash of fear cross her face. "Stop," he said gently. "What just happened?" I moved too fast, Robert said, looking embarrassed. And how did it make your partner feel? The Palaxi student, a female named Sari, spoke quietly. Scared. For a moment I thought he was attacking. David nodded. This is why we train slowly. Speed comes later. First we build trust. Robert, apologize and try again at half speed. This was his new reality. Teaching humans to be aware of their strength, their speed, their reflexes. Teaching aliens that humans could be careful despite their power. Building bridges one exercise at a time. But the galaxy beyond the Institute hadn't forgotten or forgiven. News feeds still debated the human question. Some worlds wanted to expel Earth from the Union entirely. Others argued for restricted membership. Nobody seemed to want humans as full equals. David tried not to think about it. He focused on his students, on the small victories. A human successfully restraining themselves. An alien successfully sparring with a human without fear. These tiny moments of progress were all he had. Then everything changed. The alarm woke David from a deep sleep. Not the gentle chime of a morning reminder, but the harsh blare of an emergency broadcast. He rushed to the common area where others were gathering, their faces lit by the glow of holographic news feeds. Ambassador Chen Wei's face appeared on screen, her expression grave. Attention all human personnel. The Galactic Union has detected an unknown fleet entering Union space. Initial contact has been made with a species calling themselves the Skorath. Diplomatic attempts have failed. They are attacking outlying colonies. The feed switched to footage from a colony world. Ships descended from orbit, weapons firing. Buildings exploded. People ran. The attacking ships were dark and angular, designed for war. Hralvik appeared beside David, his scaled face tight with concern. The Skorath. We thought they were extinct. They disappeared 500 years ago after wars with 3 neighboring civilizations. What are they? David asked. Predators like you. But without your conscience, more news came rapidly. The Union fleet had engaged the Skorath near a world called Haven 3. The battle was not going well. Union ships were designed for defense and peacekeeping, not against an enemy that fought with pure aggression. Then came a message that David never expected. Ambassador Chen Wei again, this time addressing him specifically. David Cooper, you are requested to report to the nearest Union communication hub immediately. The Security Council wants to speak with you. David and Hralvik took a shuttle to the nearest station. When the communication link opened, David found himself facing the same council chamber where his case had been argued months ago. Admiral Stone spoke first. David, I'll be direct. We need help. The Skorath are crushing our defensive lines. We've lost 3 colony worlds and 12 ships. Our forces can't match their aggression. I'm sorry to hear that, David said carefully, but I'm not sure what you want from me. A Cortani delegate, one who had voted against human integration, leaned forward. We want warriors. We need predators who can fight predators. You voted to keep us out. We did. We were afraid. We still are. But we're more afraid of the Skorath. The delegate's pride clearly hurt him. We're asking for Earth's help. David felt anger rise in his chest. You rejected us. Called us too dangerous. Suspended our military application. Now you want us to fight your war? Admiral Stone raised a hand. David, I understand your anger. But this isn't about politics anymore. Civilians are dying. Children are dying. If we don't stop the Skorath, they'll keep advancing until they reach the core worlds. Billions of lives are at stake. So now we're good enough to die for you? That's not fair, another delegate said, isn't it? You treated us like dangerous animals, kept us on a leash. Now you want us to bite your enemies? Hralvik put a hand on David's shoulder. David, I understand your feelings. But think about the people on Haven 3. They didn't vote against your species. They're just trying to survive. David took a breath. Hralvik was right. This wasn't about pride or politics. It was about people in danger. What exactly are you asking? He said. Admiral Stone looked relieved. Earth's government is already mobilizing military forces. But it will take weeks for main fleets to arrive. We need immediate help at Haven 3. We're asking for volunteers, human combat specialists who can deploy quickly and help hold the line. You want contractors, mercenaries? We want help, whatever form it takes. David thought about his students, the humans he'd been training for months. They weren't official soldiers, but many had military backgrounds. They were skilled, disciplined, and most importantly, they understood restraint. Give me 12 hours, he said. He gathered the human students and staff at the Institute. About 80 people total. He explained the situation without sugarcoating it. The Union needs help. They're asking for volunteers to deploy to a combat zone. This is dangerous. Very dangerous. Nobody will think less of you if you say no. A hand went up. Robert, the student who'd bumped into Sari during training. Is it true the Skorath are attacking civilians? Yes, then I'm in. More hands rose. One by one, every human in the room volunteered. 80 people ready to risk their lives for a union that had rejected them. David felt pride and fear in equal measure. All right, but we do this the right way. No cowboys, no heroes. We work as a unit. We follow orders. We protect civilians first, engage the enemy second, and we show this galaxy that humans can be trusted with power. They gathered their equipment and boarded transports. Hralvik insisted on coming too, along with a dozen alien volunteers from the Institute. Other species wanted to help as well. The journey to Haven 3 took 2 days. David used the time to brief everyone on what they knew about the Skorath. Intelligence was limited, but reports indicated they were roughly humanoid, heavily armed, and fought with suicidal aggression. They're predators, David explained. But they're not like us. They don't have rules of war. They don't take prisoners. They don't care about civilians. When you face them, remember that. The transport dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Haven 3 system. The planet hung in space ahead, beautiful and blue, but orbital scans showed fires on the surface. Skorath ships controlled the orbital space, bombing defensive positions. Union forces were dug in at the main colony city, but they were losing ground. David's transport slipped past the Skorath blockade and landed at the Defenders' command post. The Union commander, a Cortani officer named Relis, looked exhausted. His crystalline skin was cracked in places, a sign of extreme stress. You're the humans? He asked, looking at David's group doubtfully. We are. 80 soldiers? I have 3,000 defenders and we can barely hold the line. What can 80 do? Let us show you. David deployed his people carefully. He put them at the weak points in the defensive line, places where Union soldiers were about to break. He mixed them with alien troops, creating integrated units that could support each other. Then the Skorath attacked. They came at dawn, hundreds of warriors in powered armor charging across open ground. Union forces fired their weapons, but the Skorath barely slowed. They were fast, aggressive, fearless. David watched through his tactical display as enemy forces slammed into the defensive line. Union soldiers fought bravely but fell back under the pressure. The line was breaking. Then the Skorath hit the positions where humans were dug in. The first Skorath warrior that reached David's position was big, maybe 7 feet tall, covered in black armor with weapons built into both arms. He charged forward, expecting the defenders to run like the others had. Instead, David stepped forward to meet him. The Skorath swung a powered blade. David ducked under it, moved inside the alien's reach, and drove his shoulder into the warrior's center mass. The impact would have barely moved a human. It sent the Skorath stumbling backward. Before the alien could recover, David swept his legs and put him on the ground. Not gently. Hard enough to crack armor plating. The other Skorath warriors paused, confused. The prey had fought back, actually hurt one of their own. David stood over the fallen warrior. This position is defended. Leave or we'll put all of you down. The Skorath commander spoke through a translator. You fight like us. What are you? Human. From Earth. Never heard of it. You will. The Skorath attacked again, but this time they were cautious. They'd learned that humans weren't easy prey. All along the line, the same thing was happening. Human positions held where others had broken. The defensive line stabilized. Commander Relis found David after the fighting stopped. The Cortani officer looked at him with new respect. How? How did you hold when my best troops couldn't? We're used to fighting things as dangerous as we are. On Earth, everything is a threat. We learn to handle it. The Skorath are predators, apex fighters. So are we. The difference is we fight for a reason. They fight because it's all they know. News of the battle spread quickly. The humans had held the line. Haven 3 was still standing. And for the first time, the galaxy saw humans not as a threat, but as protectors. The Skorath commander requested a parley the next day. David met him in neutral ground between the lines. You fight well, the Skorath said. His face was hidden behind a helmet, but his voice carried respect. like true warriors. Why do you defend the weak species? Because they're not weak. They're different. And they're people. That's what people do. We protect each other. The Scoreth was silent for a long moment. My people respect strength. We came here expecting easy conquest. But you have shown strength. We will withdraw and reconsider. Just like that? We don't waste warriors on battles we can't win. You have made this battle too expensive. The Scoreth fleet left Haven 3 system that night. They didn't surrender or apologize. They simply recognized that the Union had found defenders who could match them. David stood on the command post roof, watching the enemy ships depart. Around him, humans and aliens worked together, repairing damage, treating wounded, rebuilding what had been destroyed. Tyrell approached, her fur singed from fighting fires. You saved us. We all saved each other. No, you showed us something. You showed us that predators can be protectors. David's communicator chimed. It was Admiral Stone calling from the Security Council chamber. David Cooper, the Council has just voted. Earth's military integration application is approved, unanimously effective. Immediately, David felt a complex mix of emotions, victory, relief, but also bitterness that it took a war to change their minds. What changed? He asked. We did, Admiral Stone said simply. We learned the difference between being dangerous and being a danger. Thank you for teaching us. The transport back to Orbital 7 felt different this time. David sat in the same seat he'd occupied months ago when he'd been escorted away in restraints, but everything had changed. Then he'd been a problem to solve. Now he was being welcomed back as an instructor. The galaxy had shifted in ways both large and small. The Scoreth had withdrawn from Union space, their commanders impressed enough by human resistance to seek different targets. Haven 3 was rebuilding with human engineers helping alien construction crews, and Earth's military personnel were being integrated into Union forces across dozens of worlds. But David wasn't thinking about the big picture. He was thinking about one training hall, one moment of violence, and how it had spiraled into everything that followed. The Academy landing bay looked the same as before. Clean, organized, efficient, but this time, instead of fearful stares, David received nods of respect from the personnel. Word of Haven 3 had spread everywhere. Humans were no longer the scary unknown. They were proven allies. Commandant Drelix met him at the entrance, his colors shifting through patterns that David's translator identified as pleased and respectful. Welcome back. Instructor Cooper, Drelix said, emphasizing the new title. Your quarters have been prepared. Your first class begins tomorrow. Thank you, Commandant. I'm ready. Walking through the corridors, David noticed the changes. Signs in multiple languages now included warnings about human strength and reaction times. Training equipment had been upgraded to handle higher stress loads. And most noticeably, there were humans everywhere. Not just students, but instructors, engineers, support staff. Earth's people had become part of the Academy's fabric. His new quarters were larger than his old student room. A private space with a desk, a proper bed, even a small kitchen area. On the desk sat a data pad with his class roster and curriculum. He reviewed the names. 40 students from 16 different species, including Palaxi, including Torgathi, a true mixed group. Exactly what the Academy had promised when they'd first invited humans. That evening, Hralvik visited. The Torgathi instructor had recovered fully from his injuries. His arm had healed straight and strong, though he occasionally rubbed it like it still ached. Tomorrow is important, Hralvik said, settling into a chair designed for his larger frame. Your first official class as an Academy instructor. I'm nervous, David admitted. Good, you should be. Teaching is harder than fighting. When you fight, you only risk yourself. When you teach, you shape others. Did you feel that way when you taught me? Hralvik's colors rippled with something like regret. I thought I was teaching you discipline. Instead, I taught the galaxy a lesson about assumptions. I'm sorry I hurt you. Stop apologizing. I struck you. You defended yourself. I learned from it. The galaxy learned from it. Some lessons are expensive, but that doesn't make them less valuable. They talked late into the night, discussing training methods and cultural differences and how to build trust between species that saw the universe in fundamentally different ways. Hralvik had become more than a former instructor. He'd become a friend. The next morning, David arrived at the training hall early, the same hall where everything had happened. Someone had replaced the mat, but David could still picture the spot where Hralvik had fallen. His students filed in gradually. They were young, eager, nervous. David recognized that look. It was the same expression he'd worn on his first day at the academy, back when he thought he understood what he was getting into. Tyrell was among them, her fur brushed neat and her eyes bright. She'd left Haven 3 to enroll formally at the academy. Several other aliens who'd fought alongside humans during the battle had done the same. And there were humans, too. 5 of them, fresh from Earth, carrying themselves with the unconscious confidence that came from growing up in heavy gravity. David walked to the center of the hall. 40 pairs of eyes tracked his movement. "Welcome to Advanced Combat Theory," he began. "I'm Instructor Cooper. Some of you know me. Others have heard stories. Let me start by telling you what this class is really about." He gestured for them all to sit. They did, creating a circle with him at the center. 6 months ago, I stood in this hall as a student. I made a mistake. My instructor tried to correct me, and I reacted badly. Very badly. He nearly died. I was put on trial. Earth's membership in the Union was threatened. It became a political crisis that affected billions of people. The students listened with rapt attention. Today, I'm going to teach you what I learned from that mistake. This isn't about fighting techniques or weapon systems. This is about understanding power and responsibility, about knowing when to use your strength and when to hold back, about being dangerous without being a danger. He stood and gestured for a volunteer. Tyrell raised her hand. "Tyrell, please stand with me. Now I want everyone to watch carefully." David moved slowly, demonstrating a basic defensive position. This is how I was standing when Instructor Hralvik corrected me. My weight was wrong. My center of gravity was off. He struck me here. David tapped his own cheek gently. A light blow meant to refocus my attention. He paused, letting them imagine the moment. My body reacted in less than a quarter second. Faster than I could think. I caught his wrist, executed a throw, and put him on the ground with enough force to break bones and crack his skull. All of this happened in 2.8 seconds. The students shifted uncomfortably. Here's the important part. At 1.8 seconds, my conscious mind caught up with my reflexes. I realized what I was doing, and I stopped. That stop, that choice, that's what this class is about. He looked at each student in turn. All of you have capabilities. Cortani, your forearms give you advantage in grappling. Maluvians, your skin secretes compounds that can disorient opponents. Humans were strong and fast with dangerous reflexes. Every species here can hurt others. The question is, will you? David began walking around the circle. In this class, you'll learn to fight. Really fight. Not the gentle training you've had before. We're going to push you. Hard. You'll learn what you're capable of in combat. But more importantly, you'll learn control. You'll learn to assess threats. You'll learn when to fight and when to walk away. You'll learn to be warriors with wisdom. A human student named Patricia raised her hand. Instructor Cooper, what if we're attacked? What if someone hits us like they hit you? Then you defend yourself. But defense doesn't mean destruction. It means stopping the threat with appropriate force. That's what we'll practice, every day, until it's automatic. He called Patricia up and had her stand facing him. Patricia, I'm going to move toward you quickly. I want you to react defensively, but stop before making contact. Show control. David moved fast, closing the distance in a blink. Patricia's hand snapped up in a perfect blocking position, her body shifting to deflect his momentum. But her strike stopped an inch from his throat. Controlled, precise, perfect. That's what I want to see. The ability to react combined with the wisdom to restrain. He spent the next hour putting students through similar drills. Aliens learning to trust that humans wouldn't accidentally hurt them. Humans learning to modulate their strength when working with more fragile species. Everyone learning that different didn't mean dangerous. A Torgathi student named Skal asked, Instructor, what about the Skorath? They don't care about restraint. How do we fight enemies like that? David nodded. Good question. When you face an enemy that respects only strength, you show them strength. But even then, you maintain discipline. You fight smart, not angry. You protect civilians. You follow the rules of war. Because the moment you abandon those rules, you become the monster. But we saw footage from Haven 3. You were aggressive, violent. I was effective. There's a difference. I used the minimum force necessary to stop the threat. Some situations require more force than others. Learning to judge those situations, that's part of being a warrior. The class continued for 3 hours. By the end, students were working in mixed pairs, humans with aliens. practicing techniques that required trust and communication. David watched a human student named Alex successfully restrain a Cortani partner without injuring any of the alien's forearms. He saw Tyrrell confidently blocking strikes from a human without flinching. Progress, real progress. After class, several students lingered to ask questions. They wanted to know about Earth, about human training, about the battles at Haven 3. David answered patiently, sharing what he'd learned. Tyrrell was the last to leave. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For coming back. For teaching us. I was so afraid of you at first. Now I understand. You're not scary because you're dangerous. You're inspiring because you choose to be gentle." That evening, David received a message from Ambassador Chen Wei. She was visiting the academy for an official ceremony and wanted to meet him first. They sat in her temporary office, tea cooling between them. "You've done well," Chen Wei said. "Better than we hoped. The integration is proceeding smoothly across all Union facilities. Human and alien personnel are learning to work together. There are still problems, still incidents, but they're being resolved. I'm glad. David, I want to ask you something. Do you regret it? That moment in the training hall? Everything that came after?" David thought carefully. "I regret hurting Hralvik. I regret the pain and fear I caused. But do I regret the consequences? No, because we learned something important. Both sides learned. What did we learn? That being different doesn't mean being incompatible. That strength and gentleness can coexist. That predators can be protectors. We learned to look past fear and see possibility." Chen Wei smiled, spoken like a teacher. "Earth is proud of you, David. You turned a disaster into a bridge." The ceremony that evening filled the Academy's main hall. Representatives from dozens of worlds attended. The Galactic Union was officially recognizing human contributions to the defense of Haven 3 and formally accepting Earth as a full military partner. Admiral Stone gave a speech about unity and cooperation. Commandant Drellick spoke about the importance of understanding different cultures. And then, surprisingly, they called David to the stage. "David Cooper," Admiral Stone said, "you were at the center of a moment that could have divided us permanently. Instead, through your actions and choices, you helped bring us together. The Union recognizes your service with the Star of Merit, our highest civilian honor." David accepted the medal, a small crystalline star that caught the light. He looked out at the audience. Humans and aliens sitting together, his students in the front row, Hralvik standing near the back, his colors showing pride. They asked him to say something. David stepped to the podium, his heart racing. "6 months ago, I stood in a training hall and made a mistake that almost destroyed everything. I reacted with violence when I should have used words. I let my instincts override my judgment." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But I also learned something. I learned that we're all afraid of something. Humans are afraid of being rejected, of being seen as monsters. Aliens are afraid of being hurt, of trusting predators. Fear is natural, but fear doesn't have to control us." He held up the medal. "This honor isn't really for me. It's for everyone who chose to look past fear. For Instructor Hralvik, who could have condemned humans but chose to understand us instead. For Tyrrell and others who faced their fear and learned to trust. For every alien who gave humans a second chance and every human who proved we deserved it." David looked directly at his students. "We're all dangerous in our own ways. Every species here has the capacity to harm others. But we also have the capacity to help, to protect, to care. That's the choice we make every day. That's what makes us more than predators or prey. That makes us people." The applause was deafening. David returned to his seat, feeling overwhelmed. Later, after the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, David found himself back in the training hall. Alone now, quiet. He stood in the center where everything had happened. Hralvik entered, his footsteps soft on the new mat. "Thinking about that day?" the Torgathi instructor asked. "Always. It changed everything." "Yes, it did." Hralvik moved to stand beside him. "I've been thinking, too, about what I said to you in the medical bay. Do you remember? You said I could have killed you but stopped myself." "Yes, but I've realized something else. You didn't just stop. You looked at me with horror, with guilt, with genuine distress at what you'd done. That moment, David, that's when I knew humans were worthy of trust, because you cared that you'd hurt me." They stood together in silence for a moment. "Tomorrow, more students," Hralvik said. "More teaching, more bridge building. I'm ready. I know you are. You were always ready. You just didn't know it yet. David left the training hall and walked through the academy corridors. Around him, humans and aliens moved together, studying, talking, laughing, building the future one interaction at a time. He thought about the long road that had brought him here. The pain, the fear, the struggle, but also the growth, the understanding, the connections formed across species lines. The galaxy had learned that humans were predators, but they'd also learned that humans were more than their instincts. They were people who chose every day to be better than their nature demanded, and in the end, that choice was what mattered most. David reached his quarters and looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, other humans were serving alongside aliens, protecting colonies, exploring new worlds, building a future together. The incident in the training hall had almost destroyed everything. Instead, it had become the foundation for something greater. Proof that even the worst moments could lead to the best outcomes if people were willing to learn, to change, to trust. Tomorrow, he would teach another class. His students would learn to fight and to restrain, to be dangerous and to be kind. They would carry those lessons out into the galaxy, spreading understanding one person at a time. It wasn't the path David had expected. But looking back, he wouldn't change it. Because sometimes the hardest lessons teach the most important truths, and sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when not to use it.